Well, folks, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers worked out 6 players recently, adding one of them to the practice squad. Shout out to Sleeper, by the way. More on them a little bit later on in this video. So, the Bucs worked out, it was 3 offensive linemen and 3 tight ends. Recently, they did add tight end Caden Prescorn to the practice squad. But I do want to talk about the other players that were present in that workout because the Bucs are always churning the roster, seeing what guys they could possibly add to the practice squad later on down the line. I did talk about the Keith being placed on the IR situation in a separate video. I imagine that this workout happened in conjunction or parallel to that situation, so the Buccaneers wanted to add another guy who might be able to have some blocking abilities somewhere down the line. So let's go through all of these names. The first one I want to talk about is Carson Barnhart, offensive tackle, formerly of the Michigan Wolverines. So came out of a very, very good school in that scenario. Now, he didn't have any snaps in 2022, which was very, very interesting to me. But whenever we take a look at his overall blocking from his time in Michigan, a bit of a mixed bag. Not necessarily the greatest numbers in the world, but not the worst numbers in the world. Also, his best grade was his first year at Michigan, but in terms of long-term snaps, he was a full starter in 23 for Michigan. He had a 63.2 overall grade, a run blocking grade of 63.2 as well, and a pass blocking grade of 57.0. So definitely middle of the road type of college offensive lineman. Was 6'5", 316 pounds. The next player that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers took a look at was a tight end called Zack Davidson. Zack Davidson is another player who was coming out of the college ranks. He was actually a quarterback converted to tight end, I believe. Let me go ahead and see if I can figure out the full statistics here. I'm pretty sure Zack Davidson was a guy who had formerly played tight end. Let's see if we can find Mr. Zack Davidson here. Nope, I did find him. Zack Davidson is right here. So Zack Davidson, formerly of Central Missouri. He was a 5th-round draft pick in 2021 of the Minnesota Vikings. For 2022 to 2024, he played for the Buffalo Bills, first-team Division II All-American, first-team All-MIAA in 2019, and a second-team All-MIAA in 2017. It's really interesting that we can't find anything regarding his statistics. That is interesting to me. All we can find is really just the name. I'm curious why we only get one Zack Davidson at Kansas State. Weird. So we don't have the PFF for Zack Davidson, so it is what it is. Real quick before we dive deeper into this, though, I do want to say shout out to Sleeper, the proud sponsor of this channel. Guys, if you use the code MrBucs, you will get a $100 deposit match up to $100. That is whenever you use the code MrBucs. Guys, definitely go check it out. It would be greatly appreciated. Download the #1 sports app today and enjoy sports the way it was meant to be. That is together. Now, the next guy that we're going to be talking about is Mr. Bill Murray. No, not that Bill Murray that you're thinking of. The football player Bill Murray, who went to William and Mary, did sign a undrafted deal with the New England Patriots in 2020. I'm curious to see if we can find some overall PFF grades on Mr. Bill Murray here. Looks like he was a defensive guy for a good long while, actually. Played a lot of nose tackle, defensive line, and stuff like that, but they have him listed as offensive lineman. Weird. I imagine he was some type of defensive lineman. That's what he played throughout the entirety of his college career at William and Mary. So, not sure about that. Had a very good run defense grade at the end of his William and Mary career, by the way. So, maybe he is somebody who could be a developmental defensive lineman down the line. I think he's in his mid-20s right now at this point, so that would be an interesting thing to make a note of. Of course, the one guy I do want to talk about, who the Bucs did end up adding to the practice squad, was Caden Prescorn out of Ole Miss. If you guys don't know, the head coach of Ole Miss is Lane Kiffin, the son of former Buccaneers great defensive coordinator Monty Kiffin. He was undrafted in 2025, spent some time with the Detroit Lions as well as the Denver Broncos. He was a first-team All-AAC and a second-team All-SEC in 22 and in 23. And what's really interesting to me with Prescorn here is the overall offensive grades are solid. The passing grades are solid as well. He played at Memphis before Ole Miss. And the run blocking, 61.6 run blocking grade in 24, 55.5 run blocking in 23. This is a guy who, is a fine, serviceable run blocker, all things considered, a solid pass catching option as well. I mean, look, when you're 6'6", 255, I'd hope you'd be a guy that could go up there and get after it. One thing that's super interesting to me is that the Bucs already do have Tanner Tuula on the practice squad, so I'm a little interested about that, of where Prescorn's role is going to be going forward, because the Bucs already have a big-bodied tight end on the practice squad, so is this guy going to be a maybe long-term Keith replacement? I don't know. We will just have to wait and see on that. But what's another player the Buccaneers tried out? Cole Turner. Let's see what we can find on Mr. Cole Turner, formerly of the Nevada Wolfpack, it looks like Cole Turner was. So let's see what we can find on him. 6'6", 240, kind of fits that mold of what we were looking at. He's another guy who is, in his mid-20s at this point. You take a look at the PFF grades, very solid run blocker in his final year, 82.6 overall pass blocking grade, I should say, 66.5 run blocking, 79.1 run blocking in 2020. Pretty good pass catching option as well. I mean, I'm interested to see why they didn't bring in Cole Turner rather than bringing in a Caden Prescorn, because it does seem like, at least in terms of advanced metrics, Turner is better than Prescorn. Maybe it's just a preference type of thing. And then finally, Leroy Watson was the final player that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers worked out. It looks like he was a former tight end offensive lineman at UTSA, went undrafted in 22, spent some time with the Atlanta Falcons. But you take a look at this, very good run blocking, guys. Again, 78.3, 70.1 in 2020 in terms of those run blocking grades, solid pass blocking grades as well. This is obviously the Buccaneers looking for an option now that Keith is gone. They were looking for a replacement type of option, somebody who could possibly fill in that role. Leroy Watson wouldn't be a bad option. I mean, I suppose, but they also wanted to bring in guys who were vets, who had been a part of some NFL systems in the past, even as undrafted guys, because they wanted to maybe get a quick replication in there. Who knows? But they did end up going with Caden Prescorn here. He is going to be on the practice squad. So what are your guys' thoughts and opinions about all these players that the Buccaneers worked out? Were you for some of these names versus other names? I would have been interested in a Leroy Watson. That would have been cool. Maybe a Cole Turner, but they brought in Caden Prescorn. So we're going to have to see how the young man out of Ole Miss is going to do here going forward. But let me know your guys' thoughts and opinions. I'd love to hear it down in the comments section below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope y'all enjoyed. And as always, guys, I'll see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.